Welcome into the first episode of the 2025-2026 soccer season. I'm your host, real_G Warner, on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. Today, we're going to go through the English Premier League as everything begins on Friday, the 15th of August. Currently recording this the 13th as we get ready for a lot of big changes, a lot of big moves, and we'll walk you through what's going on, where we're expecting teams to finish. We have three new teams in the league. We'll start at the bottom. Without further ado, I'll try to get a best bet to you end of show. We had a great 50 and 23, 68% last season, and we'll try to keep that momentum going. So we'll start with the lowest value team of them all. Looks like, let's see, we have, as I have a bunch of pop-up windows, of course. Thank you, Transfer Market. That's where I'm going to be using as much information as possible, of course. Let's see. So, yeah, we'll start with Burnley. They're currently valued as total market value of just south of 236 million euros. I believe everything's on euros there. Um, and that is the bottom by 23 million euros approximately. So we'll go to Burnley. In terms of what has happened to them this season, of course, coming up from the Championship Division last season, they were runners up to Leeds, I believe. But it looks like in terms of their moves and what they've brought in. So Leslie Ugochukwu coming in from Chelsea alongside Armando Broja. Also Chauna from Lazio. Bashir Humphreys, left back from Chelsea, who I don't know. And Hartman, a left back from Feyenoord. So looks like plenty of fullback movement, that's for sure. In terms of losses, so James Trafford, who was going back to Manchester City, Egan Riley to Marseille, Josh Brownhill looks like he's retired, Masengo to Augsburg in Germany, and Hutunji to San Pauli. So, not big names in my opinion that are going to be lost, but the big question is how does this team really how do they perform in the Premier League or on the Premier League level? Because we saw all three newly promoted relegated last season in the Premier League. So, probably most relevant, using lines courtesy of Bet Online, Burnley minus 350 to be relegated, the favorite of all. So, not a great sign. They do have Martin Dubravka coming in from Newcastle. Etienne Green, famous name just because it works so well from his previous stay at Saint Etienne in France. And it looks like I mean, we have Esteve from who was bought, I believe, from Montpellier a couple seasons ago. Jordan Beyer, who's been around, German there. Other incredible players that are meaningful. Well, certainly Axel Tuanzebe is not one, but there are some interesting players like Kyle Walker coming back to England at 35 years old. We'll see how he does this season. To me, I think the big question is what does Burnley come up and try to play like? What style of football? Because when they're under Vincent Kompany, they played a very attractive attacking football. Scott Parker, who had been at Fulham fairly recently, he is the manager here at Burnley, and it's going to be a tough season for him based on that. Most likely to get relegated number, minus 350. We'll move next up the list slightly to Sunderland, who are worth about 258 million euros. About $23 million more than Burnley. They are minus 300, so 1 to 3 to be relegated. Not a lot of faith there. In terms of their movement or what's happened to their team, Habib Diarra has come in from Strasbourg, also a potential minor league squad for Chelsea. Simon Adingra has come over from Brighton. Enzo Lefebvre from Roma, previously in the French Ligue 1. Chemsdean Talbi from Bruges in Belgium, and Noah Siddiqui from Union Saint-Gilloise, also in Belgium. Top departure, Joe Bellingham has left. Jude's little brother has moved to Dortmund. Tom Watson, the name that has I think been mentioned, but he's moved to Brighton and Hove Albion. Auchiche is now going. Looks like some club I haven't seen before. Maybe is Olympiacos. I'm not sure. Aberdeen Football Club, and Nathan Bishop, a goalkeeper I've never heard of. So. Sunderland, I don't think anyone expected to be on this level. It's been a while since they've been at the Premier League level, but certainly one with lots of history and definitely will have a big crowd support behind them. The big question is what can they do at this level, and that's a big question. I'm not sure what they can do, to be frank, but they're gonna do their best. Obviously, brought in some players. We'll see if they bring in more. This is another big, more likely squad to get relegated. It's minus 300, only 50 cents cheaper than Burnley right now to be relegated in the 2025-2026 season. Move next to Leeds United. They were winners of the championship division last year in the English Football League. They are plus 125 to be relegated, but ultimately are pretty talented and have certainly built their squad for a long time. And that big home crowd is also really meaningful. Big rivals of Manchester United in the past, but it's been a while since they've been really able to sustain this level. Daniel Falque is a manager, formerly of Norwich City, and top rivals. They brought in Sean Longstaff from Newcastle, Anton Stock, defensive midfielder, center back from TSG Hoffenheim in Germany, Jakub Bijol, who's a pretty good signing, a Slovenian, I believe, who played and anchored the Udinese center backs in Italy. Lucas Perry, goalkeeper from Lyon. Gabriel Gudmundsson from Lille also provides some attacking width from a fullback position. In terms of departures, they lost Rasmus Christensen, who has gone and played all of last season pretty much at Eintracht Frankfurt. Maximilian Volbe, he is left for Werder Bremen, interestingly enough, on loan. Jeremy Firpo has come in, or excuse me, had left for Real Betis, but I'm not really sure that he's made too much of an impact. Mateo Joseph to looks like Mallorca, and Joe Gelhardt, another name that I don't really know very well. The interesting part to me is Leeds at plus 125 to be relegated. Clearly the most respected of all the teams coming up from the championship. And a lot of times I think that the talented squads that do come up and are winners of the league below, Ligue 2 in France, for example, or Segunda División in Spain, they usually have some ability to play well and play together. Plus, they've got a lot of players that have stuck around. Lucas Mecha coming in from Wolfsburg, plus Jack Harrison from Everton. I mean, there's plenty of decent talent on this team. Largely Ramazani, also formerly of La Liga in Spain. So there's a lot of talent here and a lot of money that has been spent. We'll see what it looks like in the coming seasons, but get off to a good start. That's certainly what they're looking for. Lucas Perry coming in to potentially, I guess, dethrone and Meslier, who's been in that kind of starting position at Leeds for a very long time. But I think the big question is pretty much what type of goals can they score and how many will they concede. But plus 25 does certainly make it seem like there's a little bit of questions about other teams in the Premier League about that they might get relegated themselves. Next on the list, actually, we won't get to for a little while, but I guess tied with fourth most likely to be relegated are the Wolverhampton Wanderers. They're worth about 319 million euros, about 47 million euros more than Leeds United, and then you drop another, looks like 14 to Sunderland. So there's plenty of value in the Sunderland squad somehow. In terms of movement in the offseason, Jurgen Trent Larsen has arrived from Celta de Vigo. He was in the squad last year. Fer Lopez, who's one of the most talented players and a great signing from Wolverhampton, bringing him also from Celta de Vigo. John Arias, David Muller-Wolf, and who I think was playing a lot for the Norwegian national team, and Mateus Mane, who I've not heard of, is another top rival with no reported transfer fee. In terms of departures, they lost Mateus Cunha to Manchester United for a lot of money. Ryan Aït-Nouri also to Manchester City for a lot of money, but nowhere near the same as Cunha. Continually, Manchester United keeps spending and spending and spending. I'm not sure what they get from it. Gonzalo Guedes has left for Real Sociedad for a pretty nominal fee. Tommy Doyle on loan, and Nasser Giga to Rangers in Scotland. So some big names lost. Certainly, Ryan Aït-Nouri was a really important attacking left back who sometimes played as far up the pitch as anyone could. Certainly a value potentially in the Premier League, Fantasy Premier League season. But the big question, I think, when you lose Cunha and Aït-Nouri is where do the goals come from? Cunha has been in and out of that lineup for a long time. Certainly great at getting suspended, but we'll see where the goals come from. In terms of goals where they do come from, Hee-Chan Hwang, who's been really good, South Korean. Sasa Kalajic has not been able to be on the pitch. Those are big problems. Fabio Silva returns after his loan with Udi Las Palmas in the Spanish La Liga. And I'm very curious to see what Fer Lopez, who's one of the biggest talents in Spain, 21 years old, somehow only valued at 5 million euros on transfer market. That seems really low, especially considering how much it was paid for him, 23 million euros. I don't think people are just giving out contracts for free in the Premier League, even with a big name. So we'll see what that looks like. I feel like from a coaching perspective, Vitor Pereira did a great job of saving Wolverhampton, considering they were looking like a potential relegation candidate last season. They're plus 275 to be relegated, fourth most likely in the English Premier League this season, entering it as it starts in 2 days. But I think at this point, for me, it's just really hard to trust anyone that is not a newly promoted team to get relegated. And we've seen this Wolverhampton squad fight under the new manager, Vitor Pereira, when he got hired mid-season. And honestly, I thought they had a lot more talent, deserved a lot better than things went for them and for their previous managers. So move next up a little bit in squad value from Wolverhampton at 319 million euros to Fulham. They're at three north of 331 and a half. They had a pretty good year to start the season. Were far from any sort of relegation concerns and played like it towards the end of the year with not a lot seemed to matter. Not a lot of arrivals coming into the team. Benjamin Lecomte, former goalkeeper of Monaco and most recently at Montpellier, who had one of the most disastrous seasons in their 50th anniversary in Ligue 1, got relegated last season. In terms of departures, Carlos Vinicius has left to Gremio in Italy. Stephen Bennett, Luke Harris, and Willian are meaningless or not big important losers there. Marco Silva, the great manager, returns. Interested to see what he does with a team that's kind of stuck around. Decent strikers in Rodrigo Muniz and Raul Jimenez, which pretty much means there's one capable striker on the pitch at all times. Just got to keep them healthy. Thought Alex Iwobi had a great season last year. Andres Pereira is one of the more talented attacking midfielders in England. Emil Smith Rowe, who they got from Arsenal a couple seasons ago. We'll see how he does in year two. And there's plenty of talent in there. I think the big question is getting Anthony Robinson healthy. He had a surgery and isn't expected back for another month in September, so that's a concern. But ultimately, Bernd Leno is a great goalkeeper, someone I certainly trust. I think this is a team that is going to try to possess the ball a lot, but I'm not sure how much they can score. Probably good for unders, and ultimately at the to be relegated number of 9 to 1 odds. Pretty expensive considering they are, or a pretty big number considering they are the fifth lowest valued squad in the Premier League. Maybe there is some potential money-making abilities there if they get into some trouble, but probably the stability with their coach certainly helps a lot. We'll move next to Everton Football Club, who forever are on the relegation uh, chopping block, question marks, all those sort of things. But they did a great job after David Moyes was put into the position of manager last season, taking over from the most conservative manager out there, and in came another pretty conservative one who did really well at West Ham United, but they got, I think, too excited with how they performed under him, and then really just let that all go to waste, it seemed to me. So we'll move now to I guess the arrivals. Barry coming in as a center forward from Villarreal. I don't really trust him to score goals, I must say, especially not upgrading from La Liga and a very attacking team to the most difficult league in the world on the soccer pitch. Kieran Dewsbury Hall, he has come in from Chelsea, though he'd been kind of rotating around, moving around, not playing a lot for Chelsea, previously of Leicester City. Jack Grealish on loan for Manchester City is a good restart for him. He might be the most important of all the signings. Carlos Alcaraz coming in from, looks like one of the Brazilian squads that competed in the FIFA Club World Cup this summer, but had been all over the place on loan at Southampton and other places as well. Adam Asnu mentioned from left back from Bayern München, hasn't played much, but he looks like he's at 9 million euros, maybe a wait and see option for later in the season. In terms of departures, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is gone. He's not able to stay on the pitch, so I'm not surprised by that. Neil Maupay gone, but had left a lot during the season last year. Abdoulaye Doucouré, who's a pretty important attacking midfielder, kind of stability point for them. He's not there. Mason Holgate gone, but he's not been useful. And Joao Virginia, a goalkeeper, pretty irrelevant to me at this point. So, as always, the question is how many goals are they going to score? Jordan Pickford's going to bail them out of a lot of really tough situations. But they brought in, Everton did, Mark Travers. We'll see what that looks like, formerly of Bournemouth. Only 26 years old, probably the future. But I think Jordan Pickford is still a great player and still a great goalkeeper, especially for the way that Everton want to play. They are currently 8 to 1 odds to be relegated, so worth more than Fulham, but more likely to be relegated according to the Bet Online marketplace. We'll move next to West Ham United. They are coming up at 387 or so million euros, about almost 50 million euros, worth 50 million more euros, almost more than Everton Football Club right now. West Ham, they have like I just said, we were talking about David Moyes. He was really good for them, and they somehow looked the other way. Now they brought in Graham Potter. We'll see what that looks like. He was very conservative, but had gotten some results early in his time as manager on the east side of London. In terms of arrivals, they brought in Jean-Claire Todibo from Nice, but he was there last season. El Hadji Malik Diouf, a left midfielder from looks like Red Star Belgrade. Nope, Slavia Prague. That's a pretty big splash, 22 million euros for a player from a Czech league. So we'll see what that looks like. I'm skeptical to start. Matt Hermansen has come in as goalkeeper, was starting for Leicester City. Kyle Walker-Peters, right back, is a free transfer. Callum Wilson, also a free transfer. If he can stay healthy, he could be a good goal scorer for West Ham. In terms of departures, Mohamed Kudus has left for Tottenham, sold for nearly 64 million euros. Kurt Zuma, hopefully he's not kicking cats anymore. He's not on the squad. Danny Ings is gone. Vladimir Sufal is gone to TSG Hoffenheim in Germany. And Kalen Casey, a center back, gone on loan to Swansea City. In terms of losses, I mean, Kudus is a great goal scorer, but and creator. That potentially could be a problem. We'll see what really fills in for him. I'm not sure where. Everyone else seems to be not really the most important players, but certainly always a question is how our Graham Potter team's going to score. It seemed like the Brighton team was really more about their setup than it was about the manager. Um, West Ham currently 5-1 odds to be relegated, so that certainly puts them a lot closer to the relegation than even the couple clubs we just spoke about. I think the big question to me is forever how are they going to score goals? Their center backs are a lot younger. They've certainly spent a lot of money there. Kilman coming over from Wolverhampton Wanderers, Jean-Claire Todibo had been there last season. I have Aguerd, who's good, and really, I think one of the more trustworthy players on that squad. And then Konstantinos Mavropanos, who's a walking yellow card mistake, red card, all those sort of things. It looks very obvious at the back when he's having a bad game. So certainly some questions for me in that defense, and I think you could see that in the odds to be relegated. We'll move next to Brentford Football Club. Currently, they are tied with Wolverhampton Wanderers at plus 275, fourth most likely to be relegated, which is dangerous. They lost their manager. Keith Andrews has come in, Irishman, to fill in for Thomas Frank, and that's going to be a big question: is how much of the congeniality or the congealed starting lineup and how they play, how much is that going to matter? We'll see. In terms of rivals, so Brentford brought in Chaumin Kelleher from backup goalkeeper for Liverpool, who is rumored Irishman also as the manager, and is certainly going to be one of those big signings. Spent nearly 50 million euros, so not exactly cheap, but not huge. I think the bigger expense was Anthony Milambo, attacking midfielder from Feyenoord. We'll see how that looks, and certainly we always trust the signings from Brentford. Michael Coyote coming in at right back from Fiorentina for almost 18 million euros. Romel Donovan, I don't know that name. Jordan Henderson, a free transfer coming over back to England from Ajax. In terms of departures, Brian Mbomo sold for 75 million euros. Wow. Manchester United just continues to build in the positions they don't need. Christian Nordegaard leaving defensive midfielder to Arsenal. That seems like a really, really big loss. He's dealt with some injuries for sure. And then losing Mark Flecken for 11 million euros to Leverkusen. Probably a decent bit of business for them, though I think they paid a lot for him from Sport Club Freiburg in Germany. So we'll see what that looks like. Keller coming in to take that goalkeeper position. I believe in it. Valdimarsson, a young goalkeeper from, I believe, Iceland, is the backup. That could potentially cause some problem. Matthew Cox, an Englishman, 22 years old. So they're pretty young at goalkeeper. A lot going on, the Irish number one. And that's going to be the biggest question because Brentford, they've always found ways to score goals, usually from their analytics and studying and things of that nature. And that's the biggest question for me is how they keep doing that. And clearly, the Premier League relegation odds don't give them a lot of faith. We move next to AFC Bournemouth, one of the, I think, highest outperformers in last year's campaign. Great money and to be made on them. And their manager, Andoni Iraola, is one of my favorites out there. Certainly was on them a lot last season. In terms of what they've brought in, Bafode Diakite, good center back Pretty athletic defender, can play, I think, a fullback position as well. He came in from Lille, excuse me. Georgi Petrovic, goalkeeper, formerly of Chelsea, but started for Strasbourg last year in France as well. So clearly crushing France, even more France. Adrien Truffert coming in from Rennes in France as well. So those are the three big signings, really all from France. The defense, left back, and goalkeeper replacing the loss of Milos Kerkez and more that we'll talk about here. Ilya Zabarny, Ukrainian defender, has moved to Paris Saint-Germain. Dean Huijsen to Real Madrid. Milos Kerkez, as I just mentioned. Jaden Anthony gone to Burnley. And Max Aaron's not really a big loss there on loan. But clearly they sold some pretty expensive and very talented center backs for over 125 million euros. Their left back as well. So the defense is going to be almost completely redone. So we'll see how that ends up looking. They probably need to score some goals to overcome that. That's going to be hard. But I think from a defensive point of view, I'm most worried there and want to see how that looks, especially with the opener coming up against Liverpool. The Andoni Iraola style is to sit back and defend, so I believe in that. Currently, Bournemouth plus 850 to be relegated. I trust the manager too much for that, but I do think that there's going to be a step back for Bournemouth. Move next to Nottingham Forest. Right now, I'll see Nottingham Forest. They are currently worth about 446 million euros, 26 more than the Bournemouth team that we just mentioned. In terms of Nuno Espirito Santo, an incredible season last year. He's still around. We'll see if he's able to potentially redo what he did and I don't know, maybe surpass it. I don't think anyone really expects that, though, to be frank. Not Thomas Frank, but just to be frank. In terms of arrivals, Daniel Ndoye coming over from Bologna for 42 million euros. That's a good signing. Ior Jesus from a club I don't recognize. From Botafogo, probably made some money in the Club World Cup. Jair Cunha, center back, also from Botafogo. So we've got center forward and a center back coming in from Brazil. Angus Gunn, a free transfer goalkeeper for Norwich City. He's a horrible goalkeeper, so you don't want to see much of him. In terms of departures, Anthony Elenga has left for Newcastle. Danilo is gone back to Botafogo. It seems like they traded some players. Ramon Sosa to Palmeiras, another loss to Brazil. Andrew Omobunele is left for Strasbourg. Matt Turner to Olympique Lyonnais in France. So not a ton really lost or gained. I think Dan Ndoye, clear replacement for Anthony Ilanga, should be decent. But the players coming in, we'll see what the transition looks like from uh, Brazil specifically to the English Premier League. In terms of other losses, Elanga was a nice to have and certainly was helpful on the wing, but ultimately the big payers or big money has ended up coming in there. I think the big question, I mean, great defensive side last year, and that seems to be the same with Murillo Milinkovic still there. We'll see how the new players coming in will fit. They also brought in David Cormo. He returned off a loan from Olympiacos in Greece. And so we'll see what that all looks like. But I think the big question for Nottingham Forest is always how they're going to score goals. They're currently 7-1 odds to be relegated, so there's certainly some concern for them in the English Premier League market. Move next to Crystal Palace. So they came off winning the FA Cup last season, and then of course they did a great job with, I guess, somehow stealing the Community Shield as well. They're worth about 456 million euros, but the big question is, are they going to keep Mark Gahey, their center back, and Eberechi Eze, their star left winger? Currently, Avila Glasner, I mean, one of my favorite managers, certainly in his time from the Bundesliga. He's been great and has done very well. And what they brought in this season is not much. They brought in Walter Benitez, a free transfer from PSV. He looks like a backup goalkeeper. Bono Sosa, strong, talented left back, big creator, Croatian from previously the German Bundesliga, but it's kind of bounced around. He came over from Ajax for 2.3 million euros. No real other spends, which is, I think, also depending on what the hearing did for whether they could be in the Europa League or not. In terms of departures, Rob Holding gone, Jeffrey Schlupp gone, Joe Whitworth, Malcolm Ebioe, and David Olzo all gone on free or loan transfers. So the team's pretty much all together, and I like what I've seen from them. I think they're going to play a great way. They had a really slow start to last season after a great finish the season before. Hopefully, it's not the same type of setup here, but plus 750 to be relegated. If they can hold on to their best players, I don't see that happening. So, not really looking to fade them. I'll put it that way. Next, we'll move to Aston Villa, currently worth almost 100 million or more than 100 million euros more than Crystal Palace. So their relegation numbers should probably be pretty light or long shots. So 66 to 1 to be relegated is just probably something I can move past. But anyway, to go through Aston Villa, I mean, Unai Emery was incredible as a manager and is one of the best to back as my under and underdog strategy, to say the least. I think there's plenty of questions about how Aston Villa can do this season in terms of what they've brought in from last year. Evan Kassan, from a center forward from Nice, for about 30 million euros. Yasin Oshan, center back from Kasim Pasa, which that seems it must be Turkish. Marco Bizot has come in as a goalkeeper from Stade Brestois in France, alongside looks like elevating another goalkeeper from an under 21 team. So not a lot of moves so far. Of course, we do have the transfer window coming, and we'll see what happens. And they've not been afraid to spend money in past seasons. In terms of what they've lost, Enzo Barnechea has left for. He was on loan and I don't think playing for Aston Villa, but has gone on loan to Benfica. Yasinos Chan has then, I guess, been loaned out after they bought him, if that makes sense. I think so. It looks like to Anderlecht. Coutinho, I mean, he hasn't been playing for a while, so I don't know what to say about that. And it seems like there hasn't been a ton of movement from Aston Villa at this point. So seems pretty standard, like they will stick around. Not really so interested in the relegation there. I think maybe in a Champions League position seems interesting. Aston Villa plus 375 for a top four finish in the English Premier League this year. We'll move next to Brighton Hove Albion. They're worth about 40 million more than Aston Villa, near 600 million euros. And they clearly have some talent. They've done a great job building their team. Fabian Hosler is still there, 32-year-old manager, younger than almost everyone, including anyone doing this podcast right now. In terms of what they've brought in, Koustulas from a center forward from Olympiacos, which is a name I need to learn. Olivier Boscali, a center back from PSV on a free transfer. He'd been playing for PSV in their European challenges. Maxime de Kuiper as well from Bruges in Belgium and playing plenty of European competitions. Thomas Watson has come in for 12 million euros from Sunderland, and Diogo Coppola for about the same price from LS Verona in Italy. So there's been a fair amount of movement there, bringing in some decent players, not big expenditures because that's not what Brighton does or do. Top departures, João Pedro gone to Chelsea for 64 million euros or so. Pervis Estupiñán to AC Milan. Simon Indigra to Sunderland. What looks like a little bit of a trade for Tom Watson. Evan Ferguson on loan to Roma, who's a big goal scorer for them, but never really stayed healthy last season. And then Valentin Barco gone to Strasbourg. So as you'd expect, a lot of buying and selling from Brighton. And honestly, we're a team that I thought were a lot better defensively than expected last year. We'll see if they can keep that up this season. In terms of top four finish, as I just quoted, Aston Villa at plus 375, Brighton at 10 to 1, despite having a higher squad value. So clearly not a lot of agreement there between transfer market and from English Premier League betting odds at Bet Online. Got a few 6 teams or so left to go, and then we'll get out of here. We'll move next to Newcastle, worth plenty of money, nearly 700 million euros. It helps to be backed by a sovereign nation, worth more than about 100 million euros more than Brighton. Currently, manager is Eddie Howe. He's sticking around. They've brought in Anthony Ilanga, Malik Diaw from AC Milan, center back, who's certainly not had a great time. I went to a match where we got a red card actually against Juventus a couple seasons ago. Aaron Ramsdale back as a goalkeeper on loan from Southampton if they bought him away, knowing they need some sort of help to try to stay in the Premier League, and that failed. Antonito Cordero, also a free transfer, but I can't say I know him. In terms of departures, Longstaff to Leeds, Lloyd Kelly, who was already at Juventus last season. He's now officially there for 17 and change million euros. Callum Wilson gone. Odysseus Vlachodimos gone to Sevilla in Spain, and Jamal Lewis gone as well. Not a lot of huge losses there. It seems like backups are players that are already gone. So I think we trust Newcastle to play pretty well again this season to finish top four plus 160 at Bet Online. So that would make them fifth most likely to finish in a top four position. We'll move next on the list, I guess, is Tottenham Hotspur after winning the Europa League and finding a way into Champions League. We'll see how that goes. They're worth, wow, 832 million euros, about 140 or so, 135 more than Newcastle. I'm not sure I'm too much of a believer, I gotta say, in Tottenham and haven't been for a long time. And Ange Postecoglou, amazing that he was able to go out with a Europa League championship or title, trophy, whatever. Thomas Frank comes in from Brentford, very talented manager, and we'll see what he can put together in his first season. He's brought in Mohamed Kudus from West Ham. Matthias Tell has stuck around from Bayern Munchen. João Palhinha coming back to England from Bayern. Kevin Danso, a center back, was there from Lens last season. And Luka Vuskovic, who I believe is Croatian. He has come in from Hajduk Split. So a fair amount of I guess re-upping players there. In terms of departures, Heung-min Son, probably the biggest loss. Sonny gone to LAFC. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who had already left for Marseille last season. Mikey Moore, can't say I know much about him. Moving to Rangers. Reguilon gone, and Min Hyuk Kyang gone as well. So a lot more building as you'd expect from one of the bigger clubs in England. I think a lot of the question is how will Thomas Frank take over, and can Spurs do un-Spurs like things and actually follow up a trophy with some good play? I'm very curious to see what this team looks like, considering they're not going to play the Ange ball style, which just didn't work against better players in the Premier League, to say the least. Tottenham currently plus 450 to finish top four. I think there's a lot of questions about how they will do with their schedule. Manchester United next, worth 892 million euros. That's good for fifth in the Premier League. I think they finished 10 places further behind their current standing in the squad value rankings. We'll see what Ruben Amorim will do as manager. I just don't think he's a good fit. Clearly, he's going to play the style and strategy that he always has and never change anything more than that. We'll see how that goes. In terms of arrivals, bringing in all offensive players in Shesko and Bomo, Cunha. I don't really see any improvement where they needed it, to be frank. Um, Departures, they lost Marcus Rashford, but he was already gone. Lindelof, Eriksson, nobody wanted those. Johnny Evans is retired. I mean, they haven't lost much, I guess, but at the same time, I don't think they've added much either. I'm not really interested in having anything to do with a plus 400 to finish top four on a valued team that doesn't have a great fan base, that's always upset, and probably should be because they are mismanaged every season. Move next to the English Premier League champions, worth just over 1 billion euros, fourth highest value in the Premier League, though, and they are ultimately expected to win this whole thing. Minus 160 to finish top two. Let's see if there's any interesting things here potentially at Bet Online. I guess I could just go to the winners now that we're here. I'm not really a believer in this Liverpool side. I do think that there's a lot of questions. Like, for example, how did they win everything so easily last season? I think that was more about the problems of the rest of England, more so than the talents of Liverpool, though I guess you got to give them their flowers for what they did. To win the Premier League, Liverpool currently favorites plus 185. I think there's a lot. I want to look at potential other opportunities to who might win this thing. So we'll move to Liverpool. So currently, Arne Slot and trying to somehow replace Diego Jota, who might have been leaving anyway. But they bring in Florian Wirtz for 125 million euros. Ugo Ekitike for 80 million from Eintracht Frankfurt is not a finished product whatsoever. Jeremy Frimpong is not a defender, but he'll play right back for Liverpool. Milos Kerkez is coming in from Bournemouth. I mean, there is no defenders of those right back and left back. They are straight up wings that just seem to play in the defensive position. It's not great. They're also tiny. I'm not sure how much that matters because they're not going to be doing much in the box. And Virgil van Dijk will be there, but I think there's a lot of defensive problems for this team. Losses were Trent Alexander-Arnold, not a big deal. Luis Diaz, I think, is really talented. Darwin Nunez is just really hard to figure out. Jarell Kwanzaa to Bayer Leverkusen, and Chamin Kelleher, their goalkeeper, to Brentford. I mean, there's lots of questions here. We're outplayed in the Community Shield. I'm not sure the same thing will happen when they open the season against Bournemouth. But to me, I feel like there's a lot of goal scorers on this team. Mohamed Salah stuck around as well. But I just don't know that I trust too much about this squad at this point. So we'll see where that goes. And honestly, I'm looking for another winner besides the plus 185 on Liverpool. We'll next move to Chelsea Football Club. They are currently worth about point I guess 130 million euros more than Liverpool, 1.17 billion. They are certainly coming off a good performance winning the Conference League last season, but they should have. Enzo Maresca, we'll see what he can do because they had a real downturn when Christmas came to the second half of the season. We'll see what happens as they finish the year off pretty well, to say the least. In terms of rivals, João Pedro from Brighton, Estevao from Palmeiras, Jamie Gittins, great goal scorer who won and single-handedly destroyed me a couple of times for Borussia Dortmund last year in the Bundesliga and specifically in the Champions League match for sure. Drell Hato coming in as a left back from Ajax, Liam Delap coming in uh, from Ipswich Town, scoring a ton of goals. I mean, they of course spent a ton of money. In terms of who've departed, Noni Madueke is gone to Arsenal. João Felix gone, but that was probably deserved and expected. Georgi Petrovic, who's already playing for Strasbourg. Ugo Chukwu, who's never really made an impact. Kieran Dewsbury Hall was a Conference League player or a backup. So they've added, they've built a squad. The big question is what can they do? Is that midfield of Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo as strong as it seems? Can they keep them healthy? Because Lavia seemed to be a fall off. Dario Sugo is playing for Undi Las Palmas in Spain. We'll see if they can keep it all together. I'm not sure that they can. And I think it's going to be a big step up for Chelsea at plus 750 to win the Premier League. Though, with that said, fourth most likely odds to get there. Certainly, I think they have a decent chance and certainly will be a popular pick, I think, heading into the Premier League season. Move next to the second most valued team in the Premier League, and that is Arsenal Football Club, 1.32 billion euros, and about the same actually as Manchester City, who are listed first. But we'll start with Arsenal because they came first on transfer market. So currently, Arsenal, they are under Mikel Arteta for another year. Looks like this will be his sixth or seventh. Arrivals, Gyökeres, great goal scorer from Sporting Lisboa in Portugal. Martin Zubimendi, good central defensive midfielder, which might push Rice up a little bit, I think, in the up the pitch. Madueke, as I mentioned, Christian Mosquera, center back from Valencia, Christian Norgard, already mentioned from Brentford as well. Losses were Nuno Tavares already playing at Lazio. Tomiyasu hadn't very played at all. Thomas Partey, they were looking for him to go. You know, Tierney never stay healthy. Jorginho gone back to Brazil. So like teams gotten bigger, gotten better. We're missing a striker last season. That was the biggest problem. But I think at plus 240, I think I like them more than Liverpool to win the Premier League. So the real question is, do I go with them or do I go with Manchester City, who are the last team on the list? Worth about the same, and they have Pep Guardiola still in town. We'll see if they can kind of arrest the slide that happened last season because things were ugly for them, especially versus expectations. Johnny Reinders is the top arrival. Or most expensive, 55 million euro central midfielder, Ryan Cherki coming in from Lyon, Rangers from Milan. Ryan Aït-Nouri for coming in from Wolverhampton Wanderers. James Trafford is a backup goalkeeper. And Sverre Naipan at a name and from Rosenborg, I believe in Sweden, as a midfielder. So we'll see. Pep has been great, but wasn't a good year last year. They've loaned out Vitor Reis to Girona, Jack Grealish gone to Everton, Jan Koto they've sold to Dortmund, Kevin De Bruyne gone to Napoli, and Maximo Perrone to Como in Italy. So not huge losses there. Jack Grealish, there's so many wingers, probably not that big of a deal. The big question is how does Manchester City respond to a pretty good performance, or at least I'll restate that. A horrible performance by their standards, but they're so lofty that's really hard to know what to trust or what to expect there. Um, and that is pretty much the entire Premier League run 1 through 0 or 20 through 1, I guess, in order of total market value. I wanted to get this done as quickly as possible, and I have a bunch of more leagues to get through. But I think so. Follow me on Twitter at the real underscore G Warner, same on Instagram and on YouTube. We'll be putting this episode and every single one up also on there. And I think it's now probably time to get into an ultimate best bet portion of this show from the English Premier League. So let's get into it and actually do it. Hey, this is the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet for the English Premier League portion of the Betting the Pitch podcast. We went through all of the teams, top 20, all 20 in the English Premier League from, I guess, in order of, or from how little the squad was valued to the top. I think the most important thing for me is trying to find some value either on a relegation side, which you don't really have from really bad teams trying to get and stay in the league. Leeds at plus 125 is interesting. But I think ultimately, to me, Liverpool doesn't have an easy time winning the title this year. I think there's two teams that I'd want to look toward, and that's higher squad values. You could potentially look for Chelsea at near 8-1, but I think Arsenal are more likely to win the Premier League this season. So give me Arsenal. Shop around, but certainly more than 2-1 odds. Seems very interesting to me. So I'll go Arsenal Football Club as more likely to win the Premier League title this year, finally get over the hump than those Liverpool Scousers.